Welcome to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Kevin and Karen Christ. So last week we were talking about mission trips and Karen started to talk about Ecuador. Last week we talked about going to Cuba and what a different experience that was and the people of Cuba. If you didn't hear us, last week, you might want to go back and listen to that podcast, but we found it super interesting. I don't want to get too political or too religious in this, but I would say this. If you have a child that's been told in college that socialism is a cool thing, have them go to Cuba, right? That'll break them of it. So the idea that, we're just going to distribute the wealth evenly and all that, basically what we saw is the Politburo, if you will, or the people running the country lived very well, but the average person in Cuba did not.
Dire poverty.
Right. I would say that, in the inner cities of America, the people that we would say that are impoverished would be living really well in Cuba, right? So, but we, at the end of the last podcast, Karen started to talk about, going to Ecuador. So we've been to Cuba on mission trips. We've been to Ecuador. We're getting ready to go back here in a couple of weeks to Ecuador. And what we do in Ecuador is a little different. It's an Hispanic culture, and it's similar in that way. Most of the religion is non-practicing Catholic, right? So there are some Protestants there, but it's predominantly Catholic. So we go down there to share the gospel, but we also do some other things with medical clinics. So you started to explain that a little bit. Why don't you continue on that theme?
So we will go into remote areas in Ecuador and be able to just pass out flyers and spread the word that we will be giving free basic medical type exams. And those are blood pressure, and everyone will get a glucose test, a finger prick, so that we can make sure they're not diabetic or pre-diabetic. And they will also get eye exams. Many of them have never had an eye exam, and we have gracious organizations in the United States that have donated hundreds of reading glasses and other eye exams. So what always amazes us is, it's word of mouth, and we try and get flyers out ahead of time. And these are small remote areas, and you would think, maybe 40 people, 50 people will show up, and then it turns into hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah, and so guess what? Ecuadorians have cell phones. And one gets a flyer, and they're telling everybody, oh, you've got to come. They're doing free medical, and we will just keep helping everybody who's in that line for hours and hours, no matter what it takes. We've even continued to do them into the evening when it's dark out and everyone's having trouble even reading things. But the Ecuadorian people, they are a very sweet people. They're humble for the most part. They're gracious. They are very hospitable. They love to entertain you, bless you. So we enjoy meeting with the Ecuadorian people. We also, I'll let Kevin talk a little bit more about this. We've also supported a missionary man and woman who run a school up there, way up
13,000 altitude.
Yeah, about 2 hours above, higher and outside of Quito, which is where we generally go. And maybe, Kevin, you can explain a little bit about that.
El Tambo. So first, let's go back, and I think it's interesting to talk about Quito. Quito is the second highest elevation capital city in the world. Quito is average altitude is 8,500 feet. So, like for instance, one of the, I think maybe the highest elevation is Denver. In our country is like 5,200. They call it the Mile High City. Well, guess what? The Quito is almost 2 miles above sea level, and so you have to be careful when you go there. We oxygenate our water with some powder stuff, and you got to drink a lot of water. You find yourself when you get there, you climb the stairs and
You're
you
winded.
get short of breath because the lack of oxygen at the higher elevations. And then on the last day that we're there, we're going to go up to El Tambo to the Christian school. It's at 13,000 feet, and it's up on a hill that you got to walk. You've got to traverse this hill.
Between the llamas.
Yeah, you got 25 llamas on their property, which is fun. At the last day, we have kind of a tourist day, and they take us to a place to go shopping where you can buy some alpaca scarves for like $15.
You can stand 1 foot on each side of the equator.
Yeah, we did. We visited the equator, Ecuador. Think of the name, Ecuador, right? Equator. We actually stood on the equator, and it's just interesting that they did some tests where they put some water in a tub of water with some leaves, and then pulled the plug out of the drain. And on one side of the line, the leaves went down the drain clockwise. On the other side of the line, they went down counterclockwise, and they only moved the thing like 5 feet, right? And in the middle, they put it right in the middle on this red stripe, and the leaves went straight down.
Yes.
So it was fascinating. But when we go to see these people, by the way, you probably don't know this, you're going to be an eyeglass mule.
Okay. I'm going to be hauling eyeglasses.
Yeah,
Fine.
we're going to bring 600 pairs of reading glasses with us for these medical clinics. So we last year we were set up one time in a village where the church had a courtyard with a playground, and we set up temporary tents and plastic tables and chairs. And if somebody's blood pressure was high, we gave them a sheet that would in Spanish that will explain to them what's going on and tell them to go to a real doctor. So when they go to the real doctor, there are some free clinics that they can go to, but it's an all-day experience for them. So when they see that that's a complimentary clinic in their barrio, their neighborhood, if you will, that's when the lines start. They start telling everybody. Sometimes we'll actually go out in the neighborhood before the clinic and pass out flyers or knock on a door and just tell people and tell them to tell their neighbors, and they start texting everybody. Next thing you know, one day we were in a village about 2.5 hours outside of the capital city of Quito. Quito, by the way, has about 3 million people in it, about the size of Fort Worth or size of Dallas, really. But nevertheless, I thought to myself in this little village, where are these people going to come from? Because it was super rural, like concrete block houses on like little tiny plots with corn and pigs. And I thought, where are these people? What are we doing here? We saw 107 people. It's like the people came out of the cornfields. It was unbelievable.
Well, and explain the school to them, because this is incredible what they do. They've been there.
Yeah. So our friends Dave and Charmin and their daughter Kirsten have been running this school up in the mountains with the indigenous people, and it's a Christian school. So these kids are getting a more let's say individualized type education with a Christian background. So the parents like it because some of the schools in Ecuador, they just kind of let them run wild and there's no control in the classrooms. Well, that doesn't happen in Charmin's school, I promise
no,
you.
it does not.
They learn to behave, and so the parents love it. So they're trying to get their kids in there. So they're getting a good background, not only in education, but they're learning about Christianity and life and how just to be a good person. And so this school's been there for 26 years. We're going to go visit that school, and we're going to do a medical clinic in that school for the parents and the local people in the villages.
And kids are coming to that school from as far as 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And the students who have graduated, they've gone to college to learn how to be teachers, and they have come back to be teachers in the very school that they grew up in. And Charmin goes actually out into the Amazon to the very indigenous tribes. She must have permission from the tribal chiefs, or she could be killed.
They will kill you.
They will kill you.
If you don't have permission, you don't come back out of their territory.
And she has started remote schools in some of these tribes, and where she's teaching someone in the village or the tribe, she is supplying material. And some of these remote tribes, it takes her all day
5 hours in a dugout canoe
to get there.
with a little tiny 1 horsepower motor.
Yeah.
5 hours.
And some of the chiefs of the tribes are thrilled because their children are learning how to barter and negotiate
with the other tribes.
Yeah. So it was amazing to me that she has made headway into that area. So I hope you've enjoyed the last 2 podcasts where we've just been able to share our experiences in Cuba, in Ecuador. And, if someone ever asks you to give a little bit of money to send someone on a short-term mission, think about doing it, because you will share in the blessings of that. And if you ever wanted to go on one of these, please contact us. We'd love to have you come along for the trip. It is life-changing for the better.
Yes, it is.
So thank you for listening to us the last 2 weeks. Just share something that we think has been life-changing and very important to us. We look forward to talking to you next week. You're listening to Kevin and Karen Christ, the KPC Smart Money Podcast.
You've been listening to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Kevin and Karen Christ. To listen to more episodes, visit kpcsmartmoney.com. You can also find the KPC Smart Money Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.
KPC Financial Solutions is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through KPC Financial Solutions, LLC, a registered investment company. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any reference to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. KPC Financial Solutions is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by KPC Financial Solutions. Hypothetical examples have been provided for illustrative purposes only. It does not represent a real-life scenario and should not be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation.